It was 11:42 p.m. when Ava's phone buzzed on her nightstand. Half asleep, she blinked at the screen. An unknown number, a single image. At first, she didn't understand. Then the blur came into focus, her husband, Daniel, laughing, shirtless, curled in bed with her best friend Lily. Time stood still. Ava stared, not breathing, not blinking, her world cracking down the middle. Her fingers trembled as she zoomed in. Daniel's wedding ring. Lily's tattoo. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't Photoshop. This was real. Ava whispered, "No." Her heart pounded in her ears. The silence of the bedroom grew deafening, broken only by her shallow breath and the hum of the ceiling fan. She stumbled to the bathroom, her reflection pale and unrecognizable. The air turned cold. Every memory, every smile, every Sunday brunch, contaminated. She dropped the phone. It clattered across the tiles, but she didn't follow. Ava sank to the floor, knees folding, arms wrapping around her. The betrayal wasn't a knife. It was a bomb. Ava didn't sleep. She couldn't. The night stretched into an abyss of questions with no answers. She lay still in the living room, arms wrapped around her knees, replaying that photo over and over in her head. Her phone remained in the bathroom, untouched. The glow of early morning began to creep through the blinds, staining the hardwood floor in hues of blue and gray. Everything looked the same, but felt different, tainted. She whispered, "Why her?" Over and over, the words barely audible. Her voice cracked. The silence replied with nothing but hollow space. She thought of the last time she spoke to Lily, just 2 days ago. Laughter, dat, blind date, secrets, untold. How many of those were lies? Ava stood up, legs stiff, body drained, and walked toward the kitchen. Coffee, honey, normalcy, something to fill the void. But as the machine sputtered, her knees buckled again. Her life was no longer hers. It was an illusion shattered in one cruel message. Ava remembered the last dinner with Daniel and Lily. 3 wine glasses, candlelight, knee, laughter echoing off the walls. Lily leaned close to Daniel, laughing at something trivial. Ava had noticed, but brushed it off. Now, every gesture screamed betrayal. She recalled how Lily complimented Daniel's cooking, her hand brushing his. She saw it now, how Daniel's eyes lingered too long on Lily's lips. That night, Ava went to bed smiling, unaware that they lingered after she left the room. Did it start that night? Or earlier? Her memory blurred, tainted by hindsight. The guilt crept in. Was she blind? Too trusting? Or simply naive? She stood at the head of the dinner table now, empty plate still in the sink. The wine bottle was still half full. She stared at the 2 unused glasses, breathing in the rot of broken trust. Ava played Lily's last voice message on loop. "Miss you already. Dinner was perfect. Daniel's such a gem. Let's plan a spa weekend soon, yeah?" Her voice, honeyed and familiar, now curdled in Ava's ears. She had trusted that voice with every piece of her life, her fears, her marriage, her future. Now it felt like venom disguised as silk. Ava clenched her fist, phone vibrating slightly in her grip. How many lies were whispered in that tone? How many reassurances were daggers? The message ended with a soft giggle. Ava flinched. Her thumb hovered over the delete button. Then she hit play again. Torture, nigh, but necessary. She needed to feel it, every word, every betrayal. She needed to break completely before she could rebuild. By 8 a.m., Ava stood in the hallway staring at the wedding photo hanging by the stairs. She hadn't moved it in years. She remembered choosing the frame, laughing with Daniel at how cheesy it was. Now the gold trim looked gaudy, the smiles fake. Slowly, she reached up and removed the photo. Her hands were steady now. Not because she wasn't broken, but because she finally accepted the truth. Ava placed the frame on the floor, glass facing in. No smashing, no burning, just surrender. This wasn't rage. It was mourning. She whispered, "I loved you," to the still air, but it wasn't just to Daniel. It was to herself, who she was, who she had been, and who she would never be again. Then she turned and walked away. Ava used to believe she had the perfect life. Her friends would say, "You two are goals," and she'd smile, basking in it. Daniel was attentive, kind, spontaneous. Lily was always there, loyal, vibrant, fun. Ava had been proud of the world she built. She replayed memories like a movie reel. Daniel surprising her with flowers at work, Lily dropping by with wine on tough days. It was easy to believe in love when it echoed back from every corner. But now, those same memories stung like wasps. Ava stared at a photo from last Christmas. Her, Daniel, Lily, arm in arm in front of the fireplace. How did she not see it? Was love really that blind? Or had she seen the red flags and painted them white? She whispered to the photo, "Were you laughing at me the whole time?" Her voice trembled. The answer didn't matter. The image froze her heart. What she once called happiness was now the setting of her greatest humiliation. Trust had been Ava's foundation. Unshakable, unquestioned. She remembered telling Lily things she hadn't even told Daniel. Secrets, fears, doubts about herself. And Lily always listened like a priest, silent, nodding, supportive. They shared hotel rooms, wardrobes, even inside jokes. Ava never bothered to explain to Daniel because Lily just understood. That intimacy had felt safe, sacred. Now, in retrospect, it felt weaponized. Ava lay in bed wrapped in a blanket Lily had gifted her on her birthday. It used to feel soft. Now it itched. Every thread felt like a memory. She threw it off and stood up, heart racing. How much of their friendship had been theater? She walked to the closet, pulled out the wine-stained dress from their last girls' night out, and held it close to her face. Perfume lingered. Lily's perfume. Her hands clenched, knuckles pale. Ava whispered, "You were studying me, weren't you?" That realization hurt worse than the affair. Every Sunday, like clockwork, Ava and Lily met at the same cafe, corner booth, hazelnut lattes, almond croissant. They'd gossip, laugh, and plan imaginary vacations. Ava thought of it as sacred. It was their ritual. She sat at the cafe now, alone, the chair across from her painfully empty. The server hesitated before approaching, perhaps recognizing the absence. Ava gave a half smile and ordered both drinks anyway. As the latte steamed in front of her, memories flooded in. Lily giggling while showing Ava memes. Daniel occasionally joining them, bringing her extra whipped cream. Ava wondered now, was it ever just a coincidence? Or had Lily inserted herself methodically, like ivy growing through cracks? The betrayal wasn't just the bedroom, it was here too. In laughter. In routine. In comfort. She stared at the untouched croissant and thought, "You didn't just steal my husband. You stole my Sundays too." In a box marked "Donations from Lily's old apartment," found during a recent closet purge, Ava discovered a journal. She knew she shouldn't read it. But she did. Page after page unraveled everything. Lily's handwriting, neat, floral, calculated, filled with entries Ava never imagined. "He looks at me like I'm sunlight. I think he'd leave her if she weren't so perfect." Ava's heart thudded with every line. She wasn't crazy. This had been brewing for months, maybe years. The entries shifted tones, jealousy, obsession, triumph. "She trusts me so much. It's almost funny." Ava dropped the journal, bile rising in her throat. This wasn't just an affair. It was a game. She wiped tears from the page and whispered, "You never loved me." That's what burned. Not the sex. Not the lies. But the cold, methodical dismantling of something Ava had called sisterhood. In Ava's jewelry box sat a silver locket Lily had given her 2 birthdays ago, engraved with, "To the sister I chose." At the time, it made Ava cry. Now, It felt grotesque. She picked it up, turning it over in her hand, watching the way the light danced across the surface. She remembered Lily fastening it around her neck, whispering, "You're irreplaceable." How cruelly ironic that was now. Ava unclasped it and opened the locket. Inside, a photo of the two of them, foreheads touching, laughing in the sun. It looked so real, so pure. But maybe that was the trick. Maybe the best lies feel like love until they don't. Ava shut the locket and placed it gently back in the box, not out of sentiment, but as evidence. Proof that even kindness can mask betrayal. She closed the lid and locked it. Some relics weren't meant to be worn again. Ava always believed Daniel's eyes gave him away. When they first met, they sparkled when he talked about her. Over the years, she had memorized every flicker: excitement, guilt, exhaustion. But one night a few months ago, something changed. She remembered watching him across the dinner table. He laughed at her story, but his eyes didn't follow the smile. They darted away. Cold. Distant. She had told herself he was tired. Work was rough. But now, she knew better. That was the first fracture. He had already begun drifting. Ava stirred her tea absent-mindedly, sitting at that same dinner table now, trying to recall the exact moment love turned into tolerance. The smile she once adored had become a mask. She never noticed, because she didn't want to. Love had blinded her, and his eyes had told the truth she refused to hear. Her birthday had always been Daniel's favorite excuse to go overboard: balloons, roses, breakfast in bed. But last year, things were off. No breakfast, no card. He took her to dinner, sure, but his phone buzzed all night. Work, he claimed. Ava had smiled through it. Lily, of course, made up for it with a loud girls' brunch and a handwritten note that said, "You deserve the world." Ava had cried. She thought Lily had saved the day. Now, it was obvious. Daniel wasn't texting a client. He was texting her. Ava found the dress she wore that night, a red silk wrap. She slipped it from its hanger, remembering how she felt beautiful until his attention wandered. She sat down on the edge of the bed, dress in hand, whispering to the silence, "You both lied with such love." She hadn't forgotten her birthday. They had. Ava had never been the snooping type. But now, it didn't matter. The truth had already erupted. Still, she opened Daniel's old tablet, one they rarely used. No password. Inside, a message thread between him and Lily, buried in a folder labeled Archive. At first it was harmless, inside jokes, song lyrics. Then it turned intimate. "I think about you at night. She doesn't get me like you do." Ava scrolled with trembling fingers. Photos. Plans. Declarations. She couldn't tell if she was numb or exploding. The worst part? The way they talked about her. "She'll never know, she's too trusting." The words hit harder than the images. Not only had they betrayed her, they had mocked her for believing. Ava closed the tablet with a sickening snap. This wasn't just a mistake, it was premeditated, coordinated. And worse, it had been romantic. Ava remembered Lily's habit of leaving scarves behind. Always, accidentally. One on the chair. Another draped over the hallway hook. At the time, it felt harmless. Funny, even. Now she saw it for what it was, a subtle claim. Marking territory. There was a scarf by the door now, emerald green and soft to the touch. Ava stared at it, motionless. How long had it been there? She remembered Daniel saying she must have forgotten it again. But what if she hadn't? Ava walked over and picked it up, inhaling it. Lily's perfume, faint, floral, intimate. Her hand tightened. Every thread whispered, "I was here first." Ava opened the front door, the cold air rushing in, and tossed the scarf onto the porch. No more symbols. No more ghosts. She slammed the door shut. They used to joke that Ava and Lily looked alike. Sisters from another mister, Daniel would tease. Same height. Similar laugh. Once, at a Halloween party, they even swapped outfits for fun. Daniel couldn't tell the difference from behind. At the time, it was hilarious. Now it felt eerie. Ava stood in front of the mirror, wearing an old blouse Lily had once borrowed and returned. She stared at her reflection. Same eyes. Same smile. Same voice. Had Daniel blurred the lines in his mind? Had Lily become a proxy, someone close enough to love when things got hard? Ava leaned closer, eyes narrowing. Maybe this wasn't just betrayal. Maybe it was projection. She peeled the blouse off like it burned her skin and dropped it to the floor. "You don't get to become me," she said to the mirror. "Not anymore." Ava stared at her phone for over an hour before finally pressing the call button. It rang twice before Lily answered. "Hey babe, everything okay?" That voice, so familiar, so falsely sweet, sent a chill down Ava's spine. She didn't scream, didn't cry. Instead, she said with deliberate calm, "We need to talk. Face to face." A pause. Then Lily replied, "Okay, when?" Ava's voice didn't waver. "Now." The silence on the other end crackled like static. Lily agreed, but something in her tone had shifted. Maybe guilt. Maybe fear. Ava ended the call and set the phone down gently. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. She walked to the living room, cleared the coffee table, and waited. She wasn't ready for closure. She was ready for the truth, whatever it looked like. 20 minutes later, Lily arrived. No makeup. No heels. Just jeans, a hoodie, and a face drained of color. She stood at the doorway as if waiting for permission to exist. Ava opened the door without a word, stepped aside, and let her in. The silence between them was thick, every footstep echoing like thunder. Lily sat down slowly, eyes darting around as if Ava's home had become a courtroom. Ava stood across from her, arms folded. "How long?" she asked flatly. Lily looked up, eyes wide with shame. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she said. Ava laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "But it did." Lily nodded. Her voice cracked. "Over a year. The world spun. Not weeks. Not months. A year." Ava inhaled deeply, willing herself not to fall apart. She asked again, colder now, "Why?" Lily's lips trembled, but the truth was still hiding. Ava could feel it. Lily began to cry, not delicately, but messily. Her voice cracked open. "He said he loved me." Ava didn't blink. "Did you love him?" Lily hesitated. "I wanted to be you." The words hit Ava like a blade. Lily continued, "You had everything. You were perfect. I just wanted a piece of that." Ava's knees nearly buckled, but she held herself together with fury and disbelief. "So you stole him? Like a souvenir?" Lily nodded, ashamed. "It wasn't just about him. It was about me feeling seen." Ava exhaled sharply. That was the truth. It was never about love. It was about envy. About identity. About erasure. "You could have told me," Ava whispered, voice trembling. Lily looked up, broken. "I didn't want to lose you." Ava stared at her and said, "You already did." The door opened without warning. Daniel stepped in, keys still in hand. He stopped cold at the sight of them. Ava rigid, Lily broken. "What's going on?" he asked, trying to sound casual, but his voice betrayed panic. Ava turned slowly. "She told me everything." His mouth parted, then closed. "Ava, She cut him off. Just don't." Lily stood up, trembling. "I shouldn't have come." Ava held up a hand. "No, stay." Her voice was steel. Daniel looked between them like a cornered animal. "It didn't mean anything," he finally said. Ava laughed bitterly. "A year? That's a lot of nothing." He reached for her, but she stepped back. "Don't touch me. Not now, maybe not ever." His hand dropped. The room swelled with silence. And in that silence, Ava found her rage turning into something colder, clarity. Ava looked at them both, Daniel, shifting awkwardly in guilt, and Lily, shrinking in her seat. "I'm not here to beg or bargain," Ava said, voice low but unshakable. "I'm done." Daniel's brows furrowed. "We can fix this." She shook her head. "You already broke it. And you handed the pieces to her." Lily whispered, "I'm sorry." Ava turned to her. "You don't get to say that, not yet." The room felt colder now. Still, like the eye of a storm. Ava moved toward the door and opened it. "Leave, both of you." They hesitated. "Now?" Daniel started to protest, but Ava's gaze cut him down. With a heavy silence, they walked out. She closed the door softly, not slamming it. This wasn't drama. It was finality. She leaned against the frame, eyes closed. For the first time in days, she could breathe. Ava stood at the edge of the park, the world around her quiet, as if waiting for her to make a decision. She hadn't been here in months. This was where she and Daniel used to come on lazy Sundays, walking hand in hand, sharing dreams and plans for the future. She had imagined their life together in this place, a future that now seemed like a cruel joke. The grass swayed gently in the wind, and the sun cast long shadows, but the warmth didn't reach her. She touched the ring on her finger, a symbol of a past life, a love that was now buried under betrayal and lies. "I don't know who I am anymore," she whispered, staring at the old oak tree where they had once kissed, its bark worn from years of memories. Her heart still ached, but it was different now, more hollow, more resigned. Ava wasn't ready to forgive, but she was starting to understand something. Healing meant letting go, even if it felt like an impossible task. Ava didn't expect it. She had thought she was done with him, done with the lies, done with the pain. But when the envelope appeared in her mailbox, addressed in Daniel's handwriting, everything came flooding back. She hadn't spoken to him since the confrontation. She had told herself that was it, that she didn't want closure, didn't need it. But as she held the letter, the weight of it felt heavy, like a final tether. She ripped it open, trembling. Inside, there was no grand declaration of love. There were no promises of change. Instead, it was a simple, raw apology. He admitted his guilt, his mistakes. He told her how much he regretted the affair, and how much he missed her. "I never meant for it to go this far," he had written. Ava's chest tightened as she read, feeling both anger and sorrow mixing together. She set the letter down, but the sting of his words lingered. What was left to say? The first few weeks were brutal. Ava didn't know how to move forward. She felt broken, like a jigsaw puzzle with pieces missing. She couldn't face the world. But as the days dragged on, she realized something important. She had to rebuild, not for Daniel, not for Lily, but for herself. The apartment that once felt like a home now felt like a cage. So, she started small. She cleaned out the closet, throwing away old clothes she no longer wore, purging memories she couldn't keep. Each action felt like a small victory. She took a walk every morning, started cooking meals for herself, bought a new plant for the windowsill. Slowly, she reclaimed pieces of her life. She had always been strong, even when she hadn't known it. Ava didn't need to be anyone's second choice. She was learning to stand on her own 2 feet, to heal, to remember who she was before them. One evening, while walking through the city, Ava bumped into Lily. She had not expected it. Their eyes met, awkward, tentative, but without hatred. Lily looked different. Her hair was shorter, her face less guarded. She had tried to apologize once, but Ava had shut her down. This time there was no anger, just the quiet understanding that they couldn't go back. "I've missed you," Lily said, her voice softer than before. Ava nodded, but the words felt empty. She had once called Lily her best friend. But that bond was shattered, and no amount of time could heal it. "I can't be the person you want me to be," Ava said quietly. "And I can't keep pretending that things are okay when they're not." It wasn't about forgiveness. It wasn't about revenge. It was about freedom. The weight had been lifted. Ava didn't need their approval anymore. She had learned to live without them, and that was enough. Ava stood in front of the window, looking out at the city below. The sky was streaked with purples and oranges as the sun set, casting everything in a gentle light. She hadn't felt this calm in months. The chaos was behind her, but its echoes would always remain. She had learned something valuable in this journey. Healing was not linear. There would be days of doubt, moments of weakness, and maybe even times when the old wounds reopened. But that was okay, because she wasn't the woman she had been. She had changed, and in that change, she had found strength. Ava smiled softly to herself. She was moving forward, one step at a time. The future was uncertain, but she was no longer afraid. She had reclaimed her peace, and with it, her life. The silence between them had grown unbearable. Every time Ava tried to reach out, her words felt empty. She had stopped calling her parents. There was nothing to say. Her friends had rallied around her, but it all felt like sympathy she didn't want. She had built walls, but the quiet was suffocating. Every morning she dragged herself out of bed, made coffee, and stared out the window, watching the world go on without her. It was like being stuck in time. But the worst part wasn't the silence. It was the fear of moving forward, of making a decision. Ava wasn't sure if she could ever trust someone again. Could she even trust herself? She didn't know what the future held, but staying stagnant felt like suffocating. Something needed to change. It was time to stop surviving and start living again. Ava had never been one to reach out, but one day, a random text from an old acquaintance shifted something inside her. It had been months since she'd spoken to anyone outside her inner circle, but this text, just a casual, "How are you doing?" felt like a lifeline. It wasn't a rescue. It wasn't even an escape. But it was something. So, she agreed to meet. The cafe was quiet, a perfect place for small talk. Her nerves rattled as she waited, but when she saw him, Michael from her yoga class a year ago, he smiled, and it was like a weight lifted off her chest. Their conversation was light at first, small gestures, little laughs, but beneath it all, Ava felt a shift. She wasn't ready to move on, but this connection, no matter how fleeting, reminded her that there was life beyond heartbreak. She wasn't alone. It was the last thing Ava expected, her mother's voice on the phone. They hadn't spoken much since the fallout, and Ava had buried the hurt of their silence deep down. But now, her mother was calling, her voice filled with worry. "Ava, I know we haven't talked, but I need you to know, I'm here. I always will be." The words cut through the cold walls Ava had built. She hadn't realized how much she'd missed her mother's unconditional support, how much she'd longed for her comforting presence. "I'm okay," Ava said softly, even though she wasn't sure she was. Her voice cracked, but her mother was gentle. "You don't have to be okay right now. Just take it one day at a time." Ava listened, and for the first time in weeks, she felt something other than emptiness. She wasn't alone. Ava's mornings had started to change. She began waking up early, spending time on things that mattered. There was something about the sunrise, its quiet, steadfast promise of a new day, that made her believe in possibilities again. She started running, slowly at first, around the neighborhood. Her legs felt weak, her body unaccustomed, but the rhythm of her breath, the steady pounding of her feet on the pavement, reminded her that she was still here. She was still strong, and she was beginning to remember how it felt to care for herself again. She still couldn't forget the past, but each run, each small victory, reminded her that the person she was before the heartbreak hadn't been lost. She was still there, underneath it all, waiting to be rediscovered. And she was willing to fight for that person. The box sat on the floor, unopened for days. It had once been filled with mementos of her marriage, souvenirs of a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. But now, it was a symbol of what needed to be let go. Ava knelt down, the weight of the box heavy in her hands. She opened it slowly, not out of curiosity, but out of necessity. Photos, the letters, the keepsakes, they all flooded her vision. For a moment she considered keeping some of it, holding on to the good memories. But the truth was undeniable. Those memories were just that, memories. Not reality. She pulled out the photographs, one by one, and placed them in the trash. When it was done, she felt lighter. It wasn't just about getting rid of physical things. It was about making room for the new. She closed the lid of the box with a sense of finality. This was the last step. But it had been weeks since she let go of the past, but every now and then, Ava caught herself drifting back to that memory. It always hit her when she least expected it, like a flash of lightning that illuminated everything for just a second. That first kiss with Daniel. Their first home. The sound of his laughter when they made dinner together. She had thought those moments would last forever. But time had a way of erasing things, of distorting even the happiest moments. Ava hadn't wanted to let go of those memories. They were all she had left of a time that felt like a different lifetime. But now, she understood. They were just memories. And like all things in life, they too had to be released. For the first time, Ava smiled softly, not out of sadness, but out of acceptance. That chapter was over. And it was okay to close it. It was an ordinary Saturday morning when Ava found herself walking into a bookstore. She hadn't planned on it, but something inside her pulled her toward the entrance. The soft smell of old books and the hum of quiet conversations filled the air. She wandered through the aisles, touching the spines of novels that seemed to promise new adventures, new perspectives. It felt right. For the first time in what felt like forever, she wasn't thinking about the past, about betrayal or heartbreak. She was simply here. Present. Alive. Ava picked up a book, her fingers brushing the pages. It wasn't a sign, she knew that. But it felt like a step. A quiet rebirth. She hadn't come to find answers. She had come to discover herself again, to remember that life still had something beautiful to offer her. And for the first time in a long while, Ava felt excited to turn the next page. Ava stood in front of her apartment window, watching the first light of day break through the clouds. It was a soft pink hue that stretched across the sky, warming the buildings below. She hadn't seen the dawn this way in years. It had always been something she took for granted, something that just happened without her even noticing. But today, it felt different. The world was waking up, and so was she. It wasn't just about the sun rising, it was about her. Ava had lived in the shadows of her own grief for so long, but now she was stepping into the light. The past wasn't gone, and maybe it never would be. But that didn't mean it had to control her. The future was hers now, and the possibilities were endless. She took a deep breath and whispered, "I'm ready." The dawn was here, and so was she. Ava stood at the crossroads of her life, staring at the path ahead. It wasn't as simple as it once seemed. She had choices now. Choices about who she wanted to be, what kind of future she wanted to build. She thought about Daniel, about Lily, about all the pain they had caused her. But she also thought about herself. She thought about how far she had come, how strong she had become. She wasn't that woman who had been blindsided by betrayal. She was someone else now. Someone who had learned the hard way what it meant to rebuild, to reclaim her life. Ava wasn't ready to forgive them, not yet. Maybe not ever. But she was ready to forgive herself. She had made mistakes, trusted the wrong people, but that wasn't what defined her. The choice was hers now. And she chose to move forward. The wind was warm, and the world felt peaceful. Ava stood on the balcony of her new apartment, looking out over the city. It was her city now. The place where she had found her strength, her independence, and most of all, her peace. She had come so far, and yet she knew this was just the beginning. The past would always be a part of her, but it didn't control her anymore. Ava wasn't defined by the betrayal, the lies, or the heartbreak. She was defined by how she moved forward. She had faced the darkness, and now she was embracing the light. With a deep breath, she closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the cool breeze on her face. "I'm free," she whispered, not to anyone but to herself. In that moment, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be.